The trees and the ground look great now, but as expected, anything that needs precision goes down the toilet. Alright, today's lesson is about pure technical tricks. We've built this creative sandbox to play around, and now it's time to really have some fun with it. We are breaking down two different lighting scenarios. This one, nice and easy, with some 3D+AI stuff, and that one, a little bit dramatic and moody, with a touch of theatrical tricks and heavy pose. So yeah, let's jump right into it. Alright, let's tackle this image first. It's based on the same scene from the last video. If you haven't seen it, definitely check it out. This time though, we have a different lighting scenario, camera angle and some trees in the foreground. That alone shifts the whole mood, and that's the beauty of Creative Sandbox. Simple changes, totally different image. Now let's jump straight into the interactive view. Boom, we are already here and close to the final shot, but if you look closely, the details aren't really there yet. The trees are super low poly, the displacement maps are not great either, but that's totally fine. We'll get that final details in the post-production. Leaving things at 90% is fine, as long as we bring it to 100% later. In this case, we use PG Sky 1714 with exposure increased by 1, and while you may think that the key here is HDRI, it's again, actually not. The key to this lighting scenario is the volumetrics. We applied a Corona volumetric material to the box, and we have set the distance at 10K and directionality at 0.6. It gives us a nice sun directionality and so-called God rays. You can see the light beaming through the trees. Directionality at 0.6 is actually a sweet spot when working with volumetrics and directional light. This is our go-to in 90% of the cases. But there are times when you'll want to tweak this value, depending on the mood you're after. Understanding how volumetric works is like such a good skill, especially for concept art or quick ArcViz sketches. And if you want to dive deeper into the technical side, we've got a full article on our blog and a couple of free YouTube videos, more in the links below. But let's get back to our example. Let's make an experiment and change the directionality to 0. Now everything suddenly feels a lot more flat. By default, directionality is set to 0, so if you don't tweak this value, this is what you'll get. You might actually think there's something wrong with your HDRI, like we lost the sun. That's super duper weird, and we might go into changing the intensity or maybe rotation, but that won't help, at least not that much. This scene looks like an overcast, even though this is a full daytime HDRI. And the situation can be even worse when you lower the volumetrics distance. Now it looks like there's no sun at all. We are also losing a lot of details. The whole scene turns into a silhouette. And if your scene doesn't have strong silhouettes, it will become just one dark mess. So yeah, be careful about it. As long as the distance is not too low and the directionality is like 0.6, you should be good to go. So yeah, back to optimal settings again. Another thing is the shape of the volumetric box. In our case, it's a bit stretched in the back to cover the camera view. And now, remember that you can model this box however you want. Sometimes we have crazy geometry for volumetrics. We extrude the polygons, we move vertices, and all that's fine. We adjust and test how the scene behaves. But one key here to remember is to leave some space between the camera and the box. It's very important. That way, the foreground can retain deep shadows, which are not affected by the fog. You can clearly see how the branches and trees have those deep contrasts right now, but if we use global volumetrics or put the volumetric box very close to the camera, you end up with something like this. The shadows in the foreground are lifted. Suddenly, the depth of the image is less readable. It's not something we recommend, but either way, at least you know what causes this effect in the first place. Alright, moving on. We also had something hidden here all the time. Let me unhide it for a moment. You can see there's a pink box in the upper right. This box sits right behind the camera. I will fast forward to get a cleaner rendering. As you can see, it doesn't have a huge impact. It just deepens the foreground contrast by like 1 or 2%. But even if it doesn't change much, it's worth doing for the optimization sake. You could have a forest behind the camera to block the light, and it might look the same, but the rendering times would definitely jump higher. And last thing, as a fun fact, we'll remove the volumetric box. You can see the lighting is all over the place right now. There's no deep shadows in the foreground, this area is gaining too much attention, and the hero of our rendering, the chapel, has become one dark mess. Okay then, that's the 3D setup, let's jump to the post right now. Here's the original rendering. And you can already see some problems, we have those low poly trees and not so great displacement on the ground. The displacement looks like grass from 3D era 15 years ago, but yeah, don't worry, we will solve that in like literally 10 seconds. First, we do a quick curve and a hue saturation adjustment to bring back some of the blue in the sky. Volumetrics tend to kill a lot of saturation and clamp highlights, so this is a simple way to get that vibrancy back. Then we have the AI upscaling passes, and that's where a little bit of magic happens. So we are in Magnific.ai, looking at our first upscale. Before uploading, we downscale the rendering by 4 times. That's very important to remember. Now you can see the full settings, including the prompt in the top right. But the most important one is the 8-time upscale. And this combo, like low resolution input plus big upscale, gives Magnific enough room to rebuild details. We don't want those low poly trees anymore. We want something much more realistic, just maybe loosely matching the original shapes. And the result is exactly what we needed. The trees and the ground look great now, but as expected, anything that needs precision goes down the toilet. The chapel barely resembles the original, it becomes a little bit of a mess. That's why we run a second upscale. This time we upload full resolution and do a 2 times upscale. The low poly trees stay low poly, but the trees in the background get a bit of that extra detail. The chapel is not perfect, again, but that's okay. This is the hero of our rendering. This is where we use all our 3D skills. We can't rely on the upscalers for that. Back to Photoshop again. Boom. This is our creative pass and we get that high quality trees for free. We also brush in some details from the 2 times upscale pass. Everything looks much better. And the last step, we add a little bit of that more blue to the sky and that's basically it. Here's the final image in its all glory. At the end of the day, it comes down to knowing the right tricks, both in 3D and AI, being able to get the results you want with materials, lighting and creative control. And that's exactly why in the 3D+AI Masterclass, we go much deeper into all of this. If you want to level up your lighting AI workflows, especially for commercial work, be sure to check our 3D+AI Masterclass. Next up, let's take a look at this image from the second creative sandbox. It's a special one when it comes to lighting. There's a lot going on here that borrows from the theatrical setups, and there are many little tricks that you can use here and there, so let me break it down for you. Lighting-wise, we use Corona Sun and Sky system. Even though the sun isn't visible in the scene, it's just Corona Sky is serving as a base for all artificial lights that yet to come. We plugged it in the color correction node, we shifted the hue a bit and lowered the exposure to -2. We could actually use an HDRI, but that doesn't really matter. In the end, we just need a soft, bluish ambient light. Now, let me quickly walk you through the placement of the artificial lights, and in a moment we'll exactly show what they do. So there are quite a few sphere lights behind the cacti and the characters, and it's a simple but effective trick. Lighting anything from behind makes people or objects pop and add a little bit of that separation from the background, especially when we use volumetrics. You'll see how they go in just a minute. We've also got some lights above the slave and the creature. We are creating this kind of spotlight effect. It will give both of the figures some dramatic shape and focus. And lastly, there are even more hidden spheres here and there to glow behind the characters. I will turn them on and off to show the effect, but overall, the idea is simple. Target specific areas and build the image step by step using light. And just like in the other scenes, we have those 2 boxes behind the camera to cut off some lights from the back, same story, making the foreground look darker. So let's move on and let's see how everything looks in the interactive view. You can see how it all works together, pretty similar to the final results. The discs above light up the main characters, and those hidden spheres make the side actors pop. It might feel strange to place invincible lights right behind the people, but it's a super duper useful trick to know. As you might have guessed, this scenario wouldn't be possible without volumetrics, and I just want to show you how it looks without it. So now all those relights and spotlights basically disappear. We need the fog to transmit those lights, and without it, it's not possible. Also, the fog helps us to fade the objects far away, make the aerial perspective happen. So yeah, it goes without saying that this is the backbone to this scenario. But anyway, moving on. Now, if we turn all the relights off, we are left with this cloudy, slightly overcast sky. and suddenly the whole mood is gone. You know, the composition is technically the same, but it no longer feels like anything. It's all about the lights, their color, position, intensity, and that, paired with the scene, ties everything together. So breaking it further down, let me remove the top lights for a moment and keep just the warmth behind the priests. As you saw before, they are positioned literally behind the characters. They let all those oranges and golds stand out more, especially with the slightly warmer light. That warmth also sets the tone of the scene. It's subtle, but it balances beautifully against a cold ambient sky. Next up, let's hide those foreground boxes. This is another key piece to this whole puzzle of the lighting. Without them, we are left with bright and overly saturated image. And when something gets brighter, it often gets more saturated, especially when it comes to blue. And that's not what we want here. Removing the light coming from the back lets us keep the deep contrast and low saturation in the foreground. When you talk about lighting, we usually think about adding light, but removing light, blocking certain areas, is as powerful, if not more, to shape your compositions. Beautiful, now we can move on to the post-production. So here's the raw rendering we saw a moment ago, and right above it we have a second rendering. Same scene, but we just lowered the intensity of those discs. In the first version, the lighting felt too strong across the entire surface. It pulled attention away from the main characters, so we dialed it in a little bit. Usually we just patch things out like this. We don't use light mix, I don't know why, but we just like to patch things out. But yeah, no strong reasons for or against it either. There's also a third rendering. This is quite an interesting one. We replaced the faces of the priest and the monster with gold material. I will tell you more about it in the next week's video. Let's keep it a secret for now. Next up, let me show you a bunch of small fixes. You'll see a lot of those during the post-production. So first, we painted over those additional lights from Corona spheres. We manually painted over all the little imperfections in the scene. We improved the volumetrics with the simple brush strokes. We fixed this guy's butt as well, you know, everything done with some basic stamp clone or firefly. Moving on, we add some fake volumetrics, again using Photoshop brushes and ZDF mask to mask it out. Next up, the color adjustments. We applied two different LUTs. It's actually the same one copied twice. It's a typical teal and orange called Harry Potter. We could actually use curves or selective color adjustment to add those colors as well, but we went with the LUT this time. Either way, we make the cyans a bit darker and more saturated, and the same goes for the oranges. Everything that was neutral stays neutral or maybe gets a slight cool tint. And now's the time for the upscalers. Similar to the previous one, we will have a couple of those. First up, this is a 2x upscale using the full resolution rendering. This one adds a lot of detail to the ground. We get a lot of subtle texture and fidelity from it. The main character changes a bit, but that's okay. We'll fix that later. On top of that, we have a 4x upscale on a quarter resolution. We get a lot of good things from this pass. Certain areas feel more organic and textured, especially around the monster. And giving that creativity and freedom for upscalers is a great way to break the CG look. Finally, we run an upscale on a crop with the main hero. It's a 4x upscale using a crop. And eventually you can see the upscale adds more refined clothing, finer skin details, so it's definitely a win. But at the same time, there's some hallucinations. That's not a problem though. We can fix everything with Firefly again. I'll just click through the changes real quick. And that was about it for the main hero. And all that left to do was a small vignette and the image was basically finished. Alright, that's it for today. Two scenes, two totally different approaches, different lighting tricks and post-production tricks, but taking advantage of our creative sandbox. Next week we go really deep into post-production and I hope you'll join us there. Thanks for watching and see you in the next one.